Welcome back, folks. Thank you guys very much for joining us here on the Starting Point Photography segment of the show. Right off the top, let me talk about Lisbon. We had originally chosen a hotel, Tesoro de Baixa, and I'm really upset that I won't be able to say that anymore because I was saying it so well. But there is a website called Trip Masters. Let me see if I can't pull this up for you guys. Trip Masters is a organization I'd never heard of, and you have to keep in mind I have been pulling what little hair I have out over the last 2 months. Melissa can attest to this, trying to find tour operators that can package up deals or that have good package deals. I've gone through Orbitz and Expedia and Travelocity and everything known to man, Flight Hub, Cheap Air, all that kind of stuff. One of the problems that we have, Melissa and I personally, me personally, is we have specific needs and requirements for the flight to Lisbon. One of the things you find out very quickly when you live here in Vancouver, we could not possibly be in a worse situation when it comes to flying. Canada is a huge, huge country, second largest country in area in the world, but it's got a very, very small population. So a lot of our flights have to go through Toronto. Even if you're flying out of my hometown Halifax to Europe, you often had to fly to Toronto west for 2-3 hours before you could fly east to Europe. It's a really frustrating, aggravating situation. So we found flights from Vancouver to Toronto, and then they would have a 16-hour layover in Toronto. I never want to spend any time in Toronto, let alone 16 freaking hours at Pearson Airport. No interest in that whatsoever. And then you would fly to Frankfurt, and there'd be a 5-hour layover in Frankfurt. No offense to any German listeners, I don't want to sit in Frankfurt for 5 hours either, or Amsterdam, or London. There was these huge, ridiculously long layovers, and it was just driving me nuts trying to get flights that were affordable, but also, the other issue is, I'm not allowed, legally, to fly through or into the United States. So I couldn't go to, people have suggested, well, drive down to Seattle, because Seattle doesn't have these kind of issues that we have up here in Vancouver. So I couldn't even fly to, or drive down to Seattle and then take flights from Seattle to Europe. I couldn't take a flight from Vancouver to LA and then to Europe, or Vancouver, New York, or Newark. I'm not saying that wrong. It's another area called Newark in New Jersey. So I just cannot go through the United States. So that added cost to our trip too. So it all just became just this really just frustrating nightmare. And then coming back, it was the same issue. There was one flight that was 23 hours in Zurich. No, I'm not going to spend a day in Zurich. All right. Neither Melissa and I have an interest in rolling our luggage through Zurich.
Amsterdam could be interesting.
Maybe.
I haven't been to Amsterdam.
But even then, at the end of it, But Amsterdam might be a place we go to and so what we ended up having to do, because remember we were trying to go from Vancouver to Florence, spend a week in Florence, and then from Florence to Lisbon, and then Lisbon back home. But that added $1,500 to the cost. So it ended up being, all right, we'll try to go from Vancouver to Florence, Florence to Lisbon, Lisbon back to Florence, Florence to Vancouver. Oh, dear sweet baby Jesus. It was just driving me nuts. So then the issue became, we just don't have enough money for the Florence trip this time around. And it kills me to say that, because Melissa has never been to Florence. I've been to Florence once, and it's a beautiful, beautiful city. I'd love to go. Melissa has always wanted to go. I think you said it's the only place in Europe you actually do want to go that you haven't been before. Mm-hmm. Like, you have no interest in Paris.
No.
You have no interest in Rome.
Oh,
You've no
possibly.
Interest,
Florence more so.
You have no interest in going to Greece.
Not really.
No interest in going back to London. Yeah, see,
go to London for a weekend. It would be fun. If I had money, I would go to London.
And the other thing is, Melissa has never had a honeymoon. We had a honeymoon last year, but we brought 2 children with us. That's not the way to do it.
Really?
So
I'm thinking of getting rid of the 2 that I have now, too. So the rest of our life can be a honeymoon.
That would be good. So I really, really, really wanted to take my wife my new bride to a city she's never been to, a romantic, beautiful city, so that we could have a real honeymoon.
And we could walk everywhere. And
We found a fantastic Airbnb, which we have to cancel now.
oh no! Anyway, yeah, okay. Anyway,
But we just didn't get the students for this that we expected it to. So what we've had to do is we've canceled, sadly, the Florence trip. What we'll probably end up going to do is the next photo workshop we do in Europe next March will be in Florence.
Mm-hmm.
So that'll you'll be working on your honeymoon, but it'll still be fun. So we've canceled our personal Florence segment of the trip, and what we're going to end up doing is going to Lisbon from Vancouver. So that'll cut $1,000 off airfare and hotel, and food and wine. So we'll go straight to Lisbon. But even that, trying to find those things was a bear. And then I found, I'm going to cover up Melissa's face with this one. My apologies, Melissa.
that's okay.
Then I found this website called Trip Masters. Yes, plural, tripmasters.com. And I don't know where I found it. I think it was an email that I get dozens of emails from travel companies all the time. And I saw they had this really wild deal, Vancouver, London, Edinburgh, Dublin, for that's airfare and hotels for less than $1,000.
Oh, I'd love to do that.
The hell? So I started doing some more research on Trip Masters, and it turns out they have the best flight deals of anyone I've seen. One of the other issues that we have because of where we live is for us to get to Vancouver International Airport, ironically, it's only about 30 miles as the crow flies.
It's really easy to do public transit wise.
But we have to get on a ferry and then take the buses or the car to the airport. And the ferries don't go overnight. So a lot of the flights we were seeing, we were leaving Lisbon at 5 a.m. and not arriving in Vancouver until 9 or 10 p.m. that evening. Well, the ferries don't run that late here. So we would be stuck in Vancouver for a night staying at an airport hotel for $100, $150. So that was a concern. So I finally found a flight that doesn't have insane layovers, where we go from Vancouver to Heathrow Airport, 2 hours in Heathrow to Lisbon, and we get into Lisbon at like 4 p.m. Yay. And then the return flight is 10 a.m. out of Lisbon, so it's not an insane 5 a.m. flight. 10 a.m. out of Lisbon, and we get back into Vancouver. So we go to Heathrow again, another 2 hours in Heathrow, and then on to Vancouver, and we get into Vancouver at 3 p.m. Yay!
So we can get on the ferry and come home.
So we can get on the ferry and come home. So that's why we've had to make this change, because this deal is only available through Trip Masters. So what you do, and MacMan says he's already booked hotels in Paris and Beaulieu for
So
Normandy.
exciting. I'm so excited for
you.
him.
Susan says, let's find out for ACV to Lisbon. 1720 is the cheapest. But Susan, keep in mind, that's for two people. Okay, so let me just do this. Is it AC? Yeah, Eureka, although it might not be for Eureka, California. That's a small town. Arriving March 22nd, staying for 8 nights. 1 room, 2 adults. Because that's what I first saw. When I first saw the price, I thought, oh, well, that's obviously too expensive. But then I saw it was for 2 adults. And the price was ridiculously cheap for 2 adults.
Great.
Yeah, average price. Now I'm seeing average price per person, Susan, from Eureka, California for $1,100. And that's airfare and hotel for 8 nights. For $1,100, 2 people, $2,300. That's not bad.
That's pretty good. And it's a nice place.
It is very nice. We'll get to that in a second. The $1,100 airfare, we can't fly out of Vancouver to Lisbon for $1,100.
Nope.
We're not talking about a hotel. Just the flight. I can't find a flight that inexpensive that's got reasonable, takeoff times. So that's why I switched this over to TripMaster. So tripmasters.com, check it out for all your flying needs, just in case that it's something that you guys might be able to use for your own personal stuff. But check out the website, startingpointphotography.com. There's more details there. We're going to be staying at the utterly delightful looking Hotel Borgia Chiados.
That's a nice one, too.
I'm probably saying that wrong. But this was on my list of the hotels I wanted to stay in months before, but I couldn't get them to email me back about discounts and price changes and things like that. But it looks like a tremendously weird, cool, funky hotel. The pictures on the website make it look like it's this really eclectic,
it's very funky and
very
eclectic.
funky looking place. The rooms look fantastic. This is you're watching on the video. This is one of the sitting areas. I think this is one of the hotel bars with this amazing curved roof that looks like there's brick on the top. One of the upper scale rooms is this gorgeous gold colored room. The restaurant looks like it's got this Baroque ceiling on it, which looks very, very cool. Another one of the bigger, larger rooms, the suites, has this really neat look. The views look fantastic. It's only a couple minutes away from the center of town, which is the place that I wanted to be, in the area of the Santa Justa lift. So if you're looking for places, that's sort of where you want to stay, in the hotels around the Santa Justa lift, because from there, the Elevadore Santa Justa. So that's the central location that you want to look for. So our previous hotel, the Tesoro de Baixa, was only 5 minutes from the Santa Justa lift, and this hotel is 4 minutes away. There's all kinds of bars, all kinds of restaurants in that general area. So it's going to be hopefully a really cool hotel. It's reviewed well on TripAdvisor and Booking.com and all the usual places where you get this kind of information. So, yeah, Susan, I don't know where you got that price of $1,720, because like I said, I saw $1,100 when I checked it, but it might make the difference of which flights you take anyway. Does that mean that Susan and Greg might be coming with us?
I know. That's what I was thinking. I thought, why is Susan asking that?
I know. Susan. Mapgan says, one thing is to make sure they're not booking you in basic economy if you book through that site. Yeah, keep an eye on that. Monty says, there are some travel deals to Europe I've seen in Groupon that have made me say that. An all-exclusive travel package, I can't find flights for even half that price. How do they do that? It's because they just package these things up. They just get these deals from hotels. Susan said that was on United's website. So United, Susan, I don't understand. You're saying the $1,720 is the cheapest on United's website for flights? Because that's insane. Just for the flight. That is insane. Yeah. For her to fly from Eureka, California is $1,720. Where these guys are saying Eureka, California, one person with hotel for 8 days is $1,100. That's insane. That's fantastic. That's so tripmasters.com. I'm trying to get a hold of these guys because the next thing we want to do is, once we get this one together, is look at doing these in other places. Vancouver, Florence, Dublin. I'd love to do photography in Dublin. Even places like New York City, for those folks who've never been. You've never been in New York City.
I'd love to go to Edinburgh, too.
Edinburgh? Have you ever been to Edinburgh before?
No.
Neither have I.
I'd love to go there.
That trip, I would say I'd do maybe 2 days in London.
Oh, yeah. And
just to see the main sites.
Oh, yeah.
Tower Bridge.
I've seen all that. I don't need to.
I would do 4 days in Dublin, 3 days in Edinburgh.
Yeah.
Because those are places to me that would be a whole lot cooler.
Edinburgh is supposed to be a beautiful city.
So on this segment of StartingPointPhotography.com, as we said earlier, 'tis the season to give and receive. If you have a photographer in your family, let's talk about some gifts that you may want to get them or yourself, and some gifts you don't want to give them. One of the things I've always told folks, and Melissa and I, our son Damon is an incredible photographer, and one of the things that I said that we could always get him, that's an easy gift to get, is a hard drive. Photographers can always use hard drives. Nerds can always use hard drives. and you can get really good size hard drives, physically small but a lot of data capability. This one is a 2 terabyte drive for under $100 easily. You can get, if you look around for deals, 4 terabyte larger, physically larger size ones for $100. So photographers can always use storage space for their images. So that's something you can easily get. Even if he has hard drives, he'd appreciate more hard drives. I guarantee you, he or she wants more hard drives.
Okay.
The bigger, the better. So a photographer, Monty, there's no such thing as too much disk space.
So that's a good stocking
That's
stuffer.
always a good stocking stuffer if you're looking for gifts for the photographer in your life. One of the things that I was telling my friend Susan about was things to not get. And one of the things that she was looking to get, let me just find this thing on, oh no, come on, don't want that, go away. You don't want, hang on, I'm getting there. Let me get rid of this, and get rid of that, and get rid of that. And merge all window, where'd my merge all windows command go? Oh, son of a bitch. That's not the one. Window, view itinerary. How did I lose this page? Oh my god. Oh my god. I hate computers sometimes. Completely lost this page. You're kidding me. I had this page all set up.
Oh, no.
Okay. I have to go back to my text messages to find out the message that my friend Susan sent me. She was looking. She said, "Have you ever used those external lenses for cameras?" And I said, "Yes, I've used the ones from Holoclip and Moment. Those are probably the best ones. If you're going to get an external camera lens for your iPhone, you have to be careful because anything, this is true of all cameras, all lenses, anything you put in front of that lens will block a certain percentage of the light. Now, it may not be a large percentage, but the smaller the lens opening is, that percentage in a ratio wise could be large. So if you've got a great big huge DSLR light or DSLR lens and you put a filter over it, even a neutral filter over it to protect the lens, you're blocking a certain amount of light. Not a lot to worry about. But if you've got a little itty bitty tiny iPhone lens and you block it with another lens, whether it be from Holoclip or Moments or any of the companies, you might be blocking too much light. The other issue is these little tiny ones that fit on iPhones are generally, you have to be very, very careful, especially the cheap ones. If it's under $20, do not buy it. Because that's going to be, I guarantee it's going to be a cheap lens made of cheap plastic or cheap, not well ground glass. The casing itself is going to be cheap plastic. Don't buy those lenses. Those are a complete waste of time. You should be spending at least, if it's on sale, $75, more likely $100 for a lens setup from holoclip.com. I've used their lenses before, and I like the company. And Moments, shopmoments.com is the other website, the other company that you want to take a look at. Those are probably the two most reputable external lens attachments to your iPhone. But keep in mind, your iPhone isn't designed for these kinds of things. So only get that if the photographer in your life really, really wants those kinds of things. Well, Susan piped up and said, well, what about this thing? And she showed me this, and my first comment was, oh, dear God, why? Why would you want to do this? And Susan said, and let me get this quote for her. I said, oh, God, why? She said, because 12 times zoom. I said, walk closer to the thing you're shooting. She said, what if you can't? I said, then you admire the thing and move on. She said, what about sports and birds? I said, you can't shoot sports or birds with that iPhone. You're just not going to get good quality images. And you check out the reviews of this particular product. It says the image is subject to pronounced shaking at 12 times power, poor quality of attachment, really quite difficult to attach to phone and use it. And those are the 3-star reviews. Poor quality lens, very hard to focus. You simply cannot get good quality glass at that with a device like that at that price point. I think what was the price of that thing? I think it was like less than $100. Yeah, $88. Yeah, sorry, Susan. I really apologize to her. I didn't want to burst her bubble on this one, but do not buy stuff like that. It's just not going to be worth it. And if you look at the funky attachment that thing had on it, you can see why people would say it wasn't going to be good because of camera shake. Something that large, let's see if I can't zoom in on the picture. Something with that much zoom on it. Look at the way it attaches to the iPhone. It's a really looks like a very kludgy kind of attachment. If it's true, and it is true, that the more zoom you have, the more camera or image shake you're going to have on the other end of it. You've all seen when you get binoculars that are really high power binoculars, it's tough to keep the thing in your view because of a little bit of movement of your body translates to a lot of movement down the other end. Same with cameras that have 12, 15, 20, 30 times zoom. Those have to be on a tripod in order for you to do the maximum zoom because your field of view gets very, very tiny. So your field of view at 1 time zoom is out here, but as you zoom in, your field of view gets smaller and smaller and smaller. And at 20 or 30 times zoom, your field of view is that small, so any movement of your camera knocks it out of the field of view. They're just not worth it. They're just simply not worth it. For that kind of photography, you want to shoot sports, you want to shoot birds, sports for high speed or for far away, or at a football game and the players are at the other end of the field, or you want to shoot animals or wildlife, they're up in a tree somewhere, get a real camera with an actual zoom on it, a zoom lens or a zoom on the lens and on the camera, as opposed to one of these cheap knockoff type things. So that's the kind of thing that I tell people, don't buy this. You don't want to get this for the photographer in your life. One of the things I will admit, I would never get this, but I think it's a cute thing. One of the problems you have with photographers is sometimes you don't know what they already have. So you don't want to buy double what they already have. But I'm betting they probably don't have one of these. I just love this idea. I don't want one. I have no interest in having one. But if you're a photographer, especially this is a Canon type lens. They're using you can see on the bottom here. They're using the Canon. It's not called Canon because they wouldn't be allowed to call it Canon, but they're using the Canon font on this. So it looks like it's a Canon lens. And it's kind of a cute little gadget that you might want to get somebody in your life, some photographer in your life that you thought this might be a little bit of a fun thing for them. That's something I would get. Again, I wouldn't want one. I like my coffee mugs the way I have them now.
Damon has one. He has a lens cup.
Oh, he does have a lens cup. Okay. Another thing that I would definitely get, check your photographer's bookcase and see if he has this book. If he doesn't, go to our website, yourmaclifeshow.com. I've actually linked this up as one of the Amazon picks of, excuse me, Amazon picks of the week is this wonderful book. This is a book, it's called Beyond Exposure, and it is from a guy named Brian Peterson. And Brian, I got the first edition of this book, Understanding Exposure, it's called. I got the first edition of this book probably, I want to say, when did I start shooting seriously? Probably 15 years ago. And it changed my photography. It made me want to be a photographer. The book is really well written. He's a really weird guy. I can't watch his YouTube videos because he's just odd. So I don't watch him on YouTube. But his this particular book, and I think this is the third edition of this particular book, is wonderful. Really, really good examples. He has this stuff. I remember sitting on the plane, flying from New York to San Francisco, and I'm bored. I'm on the plane. I've got my Nikon D50, which I had just gotten, and I have this big book. So I'm bored. I'm reading the book. I'm reading the book, and it's very well written. It's the style of the book is nice. It's very it's not conversational, but I understand what he's saying. He doesn't using a whole lot of big terms, and the big terms he does use, he explains quite well. And I'm reading it, and he says, to get this effect, he's talking about the picture on the one side, to get this effect, take your camera and do this. And I was just like, all right, I'm sitting in a plane, I'm bored, I got nothing to do, so I set aperture to this. I set aperture and basically take a picture. Click. So I take a picture of the head of the guy in front of me, right? I look at the picture and went, holy shit, that worked! That thing that he said worked. And I'm going through the book, and all the things that he talks about, he describes so well and so easily, and tells you the effect that you're going to get, and then shows you that effect. Was wonderful. I love this book. I think do I still have it? Huh. I don't still have it.
You must.
I didn't. I guess I don't. Ooh. One of the other things you can get, especially for beginner photographers, is there's a whole series of these books, the Digital Field Guide. So what you do is just go look up either your camera or the photographer you want to give this to. Look up their camera and digital field guide. The manual that came with your camera sucks. There's no such thing as a well-written camera manual. There hasn't been a single one in probably the 100 cameras I've used and reviewed and tested and played around with over the years that's any good. Awful, awful, awful. You still got to read it because you still want to know what's in it. But you can always use another book like this, much better written, a lot better examples, explains things a lot better than your camera manual does. So just look up the Digital Field Guide for whatever camera it is, whether it's a Nikon or an Olympus or a Sony, whatever it is. Look up the Digital Field Guide and see if you can't get that for someone as a Christmas present. I guarantee you they will appreciate it. The other one is, and this is a personal preference, if only because I know the guy, Scott Kelby's book. Scott Kelby is a very, very well-known photographer and a complete goofball. He is a funny writer. He's got a real goofy, nerdy sense of humor. But his books are really well written, and they're very simple. They're just very tips and tricks oriented, as opposed to explaining the process of light and all that kind of stuff. He says, do this, you'll get this. Do this, you'll get this. So if you want to get someone a set of books, Scott Kelby's Digital Photography Box Set is a great set of books to get somebody. Photographers can always use SD cards, the little cards that go into your camera.
Right.
Find out what kind of card that camera has. All you have to do is find out what kind of camera it is, look up that camera online, and that will tell you what kind of SD cards it has. Some cameras, some of the older model cameras or bigger, more professional model cameras will have compact flash, and those cards are quite a bit bigger physically, whereas the SD cards are little smaller ones. So getting somebody 2 or 3 or 4 a set of those SD cards, they can always use more SD cards. I would avoid getting somebody a camera bag unless they already said they wanted that camera bag. If only because there are so many different kinds of camera bags, and every photographer, they're like keyboards, has a particular kind of camera bag they like for a particular reason. And it depends on how much gear that camera guy is carrying around. If he's carrying around, 2 bodies and 6 lenses, he's going to want a different camera bag than I would carrying around 1 body and 2 lenses. So don't buy a bag for somebody unless they specifically say that's the bag I want. This is a good chance to buy a gift certificate for somebody for a store that sells camera bags. Lowpro, Lowpro is my favorite camera bag manufacturer. Manfrotto, which is now owned by the same folks who own Lowpro and Joby. They make good camera bags too that I really like. So those are 2 things that you might want to take a look at. Speaking of Joby, the Gorilla Pod is a really cool little funky flexible tool that you can use for. It's hard to describe what a Gorilla Pod does. Let me hang on. I'll show you the picture of it. It's kind of like a mini tripod, but because the legs of
They're articulating, so they grasp onto things.
Good. Look at you.
Hey, when I contribute, I contribute.
You do. I couldn't figure out the word. The thing is, these little circles that you see on the Joby are all joints.
It's as if they were joints.
And the white parts on it are little bits of rubber. And so it's kind of, not really, but kind of sticks to things, or at least has more friction. And so you can wrap it around trees or telephone poles or fences or that kind of stuff in order to be able to, rather than using a full-size tripod, you can use one of these.
You can wrap them around, say, for example, a railing on a bridge or something
Yes,
like that.
that's right.
Yeah, or a tree branch.
The key for these ones are know what kind of camera the person uses, because there are different Gorilla pods for different cameras. Don't go cheap. If the person has a full-sized SLR, if you get the smaller version of it, it'll just tip over. So you don't want that. You want to make sure you get the right Gorilla pod for the right camera.
And I agree with Monty. The covered lenses, they'd be a great stocking stuffer. Wonderful product.
That was the next one I was going to.
Oh, I'm sorry.
That's okay.
Oops.
No. Yeah, I keep calling it curved, but it's
Covered.
KVRD lens caps. There we go.
Or as Monty calls them, those condon thingies that you reviewed.
Right. Camera lens condom holders.
Yes.
The website is kuvrdcamera.com. They've just come off their second Kickstarter. We were a big fan of their first one. And when I say I'm a fan of a Kickstarter, that's a big deal because I hate Kickstarters. So I backed their first Kickstarter. We did a review of them and an interview with the folks at Covered Camera, KUVRDcamera.com is, and this is one of those ones you can buy any photographer, because even if they've got some, they can use more. You know, I've got 4 of them, but what I do now is if I've only got 2 lenses, I've got four covereds, you put them on the back and the front, because they'll cover both sides. So you can't go wrong with the covered lenses. You can go wrong with this device. This thing, I've used these things, and they are utterly and completely useless. Do not buy them. Do not use them. You will lose that lens cover. It's a little cup-like thing that attaches to your camera sling, and then in theory, your lens cap then fits into that.
It's a very good concept.
It's a good idea,
I like it.
But having used it, I discovered the same issues that you have with a lens cap on a lens. That is, that the slightest little tick of the lens cap pops it off. The same thing happens with this. And you're actually more likely to do it with this because, at least in the camera bag, if something knocks your lens cover off, it stays in your camera bag. On these kinds of things, if something knocks it off and you're on grass, say, you didn't hear it fall. And you don't notice it's gone. So don't buy this kind of stuff for...
They must have some that have elasticized, sort of open-ended pockets that you stick them through.
I don't care. Just don't.
No, I'm just asking if they do.
But do buy... If your photographer that you're... Sorry, I got itchy. If the photographer that you're buying stuff for is still using the same camera strap that came with their camera, and it says Nikon on it, or Canon on it, or Olympus, and it goes around their neck and sticks out front, buy them a better camera strap. Either the ones from Peak Design, which I really, really like, the ones from Luma Loop, which I also really, really like, or the Black Rapid straps. Those are 3 straps I've used and really like for various reasons in different ways. So keep that in mind. If they've already got a strap, but it's one of the ugly ones that came with their original camera, get them a different one. Luma Loop, Peak Design, or Black Rapid are the ones that you're going to want to take a look out for. I'm just seeing if we have time. We don't have time to go through too many. One thing that you could do if you really love the photographer in your family, and you really want to make sure that they have the best of everything, you could just buy them a drone. You okay? What's wrong?
Nothing. Nothing's wrong.
I have been teasing Melissa unmercifully for what, about a month now?
Yeah.
I really want a drone. I didn't want a drone before.
No.
I haven't been interested in a drone except until this latest DJI Mavic 2 Pro or DJI Pro Mavic Pro 2. Even DJI gets the name wrong. It's a really interesting new drone from DJI. It's got a lot of interesting features that make it easy to fly. Up until, I'd say, 2-3 years ago, drones were just a nightmare to fly. They were very, very difficult. Flying a drone and then taking pictures with the drone were two completely different actions, and it was difficult to do both of them well. You either had to do what Damon, our son Damon, has an R1000 octocopter, and the thing is a beast. I swear to God, it's got 8 routers, 8 routers on it. It's got basically the equivalent of a DSLR on the bottom of this thing, and one of the guys flies it, another guy takes pictures. One guy can't do both. So then DJI came out with their Mavic Pro line, I think about 2-3 years ago. Then they came out with the DJI Mavic Air last year. Now this year, they've come out with the DJI Mavic 2 Pro. And everything I've been reading about it makes it seem like this is the drone for photographers. Mm-hmm. It's not for drone flyers, but it's for photographers. There's a Hasselblad camera lens on it, which is amazing. It's got a 1-inch sensor, which takes incredible photos. But there's a lot of features on the Mavic Pro 2 that help it not crash. That's quite important.
It is.
It's very, very important.
Especially if it's going to run into a person or something.
Exactly. It's got a lot of obstacle avoidance stuff. It's got a really neat feature that when the battery life gets down to a certain point that you can see on screen, your drone comes home. Mm-hmm. Like automatically comes home. Mm-hmm. There's a button on the drone that says RTH, return to home, which you set this. So say you set RTH to be 100 feet. If you push the RTH button, the drone goes to 100 feet, flies to where you are, and then lands all by itself. So there's a whole bunch of really neat little features. There's a launch. There's a takeoff button. You just push the takeoff button, and it goes up 10 feet and hovers. So you don't got to worry about a whole lot of stuff. So I've been fantasizing about these shots I want to get in Lisbon, about this kind of photography. One of the things that Melissa and I have been talking about this, one of the things I see in drone photography a lot, and our son Damon does this. He's done him and his partner, business partner. Sorry, I don't want to give the wrong impression. Not there's anything wrong with that. Him and his business partner Rob. Take these amazing shots, and if you follow me on Flickr, on Instagram, or on Twitter, you'll have seen some of Damon's stuff. They take these shots at treetop level and above.
Oh yes, yeah.
I don't want to shoot at treetop level. I want to shoot at 10 feet high. I have this visual, the mental image of walking down the street, walking down the seaside of Lisbon with this drone flying 20 feet away, but about 10 feet high. Or this image again in my head of the Belém Tower, which is a really cool tower on the waterfront of Lisbon. Melissa and I standing there talking and having the drone slowly rise up, all by itself, by the way, rise up. As it rises up, you see the Belém Tower behind us. Mm-hmm. Lisbon has a replica of, you've all seen the statue of Christ in Rio de Janeiro. You saw it during the Olympics a few years ago. Well, Lisbon has its own replica of that, and you can climb up to the top of it. So there's a drone shot there. You know, there's all kinds of these thoughts I have in my head. So there's all kinds of images that we want to get. So I've been just bugging Melissa unmercifully for the last month. Buy me a drone. Buy me a drone.
Every chance he gets. Would you like anything? A drone.
A drone. And she's talking about like coffee.
Yeah.
Would you like me to get you something?
I'm desensitized now. Doesn't mean anything. But MacMan is absolutely right.
What?
Is it all of these permits and things need to be looked into?
Only if you fly over a certain height, and if your drone is a certain physical size and weight. If you stay under 500 feet, which I would, because I don't want to shoot above 500 feet, then I don't need a permit. Plus, the new software on the Mavics, it downloads a GPS map that won't let you fly in areas that are restricted. So you couldn't take the DJI Mavic to the Vancouver International Airport. It won't take off because it's a restricted airspace. It literally will not let the drone fly in the air. And then if you took it out someplace that was near the airport restricted zone, it pops up on screen that says you are near a restricted zone. Please be careful. And if it won't let you fly into the restricted zone, it's like there's a wall.
No, there. I don't think you could fly it around busy city streets.
No, and I wouldn't do that anyway.
But MacMan's saying we might want to look into Portugal's rules. I think.
Be aware you need a permit from the Portuguese Air Force if you want to fly a drone and take pictures. If you fly over water, you forget flying in tourist areas. Ong T says over water doesn't require a permit. In Portugal, you do. So I'm going to have to do some research on that. Monty says, Shawn with a drone, scared. I don't think I'd be that bad. Especially, with an older drone, I'd crash it and lose it. I guarantee it. But with this one, because with the research I've done, I know you can. Well, one of the things is you can set it so it can't go far away. So it can't go. The range on the Mavic 2 Pro is 8 kilometers. I'm not going 8 kilometers anywhere because if it fell out of the sky, I have to walk to get it. I ain't walking that far. I just turn around and leave. But so you can tell the drone don't fly more than 500 meters or a kilometer away, and you're supposed to keep your drone within eye view anyway. You can also set it not to go too high. So I would set it to not go more than 500 meters away and not go more than 300 meters in the air. So I would keep the parameters very near to me. And landing at it self lands and it self takes off. So for the most part, it's fairly as easy as it can be. It's also got a tripod mode. It's got a sport mode. The damn thing will go 45 miles an hour. I'm never doing that. It's got the regular mode that goes 23 miles an hour. That's okay. But it's also got tripod mode, which means it goes 1 mile an hour. That's me. That's me on tripod mode. I'm good. I don't need to go fast on a drone.
Okay.
That would be good. Got a bunch more gifts to give away. We'll do more on next week's show and your gifts for photographers. If you have any ideas of gifts for photographers that you might want to give or get, or things that you're going to give or get, or you want my opinion, like my friend Susan, maybe I can steer you away or steer you towards getting a cool thing or not getting
a drone.
Not You said I should take donations for a drone.
Yeah, not getting a drone. Not happening.
Ong T. Self-landing is the thing you use. If you don't have things set up correctly, it will come back home at the height that's currently at. Exactly. And like I said, you can set it to come back to...
currently isn't at. I think he meant...
Sorry.
You did a correction.
If you don't have things set up correctly, it will come back home at the height that it isn't currently at. You can set that. It's in the settings. It's called RTH. And if you've set RTH at 100 feet and your drone's at 30 feet, it'll shoot up to 100 feet, come to you, and then come down. So you have to be careful. You don't want to hit return to home when you're under a bridge because it'll go up and hit the bridge. So you have to be careful about that kind of stuff. MacMan, seriously, if you're honestly thinking about taking a drone to Portugal, do some research. I will definitely do research, but Melissa won't buy me one, so I'm not taking one.